Hello everyone. Now, as per the information that you have given me, the latest syllabus, the pending syllabus in economy, if you could see, we have certain chapters around 8 to 9 concepts which are pending. So, all those concepts, somehow I'll try to finish in the next 10 days. Every day, one video, one lesson, one concept. If I take it up also, I can easily finish all these 10 concepts. So make sure, as I told you earlier, when you're listening to these lectures, try to use laptop or computer if you have. If in case you are listening to these lectures through phone, make sure you use headphones. And that is one thing. And you don't have to write the material, in fact, because I'm giving you the material. Uh, Open the material, or if possible, if in case any of you are having a facility of printout or printer, take a printout, take the pen and pencil and try to underline as I explain all the points, and make sure all the doubts, when you ask a doubt, you make sure the copy the page from the material, take a snap of it and cut it off and post it on the WhatsApp, so that everybody would be able to understand what doubt you're actually trying to ask. All right, that is the thing. So this as a part of economic reforms, as a part of economic reforms, government of India has introduced in the year 1991-92 economic reforms in the form of three important variables, that is liberalization, globalization, and privatization. So when you think as an ordinary person, in a general parlance, if in case you want to understand what exactly is economic reforms, uh, very important changes that were introduced in the economy, because existing structure, like maybe there's a lot of unemployment or poverty, or you have less exports or more imports, value of rupee was very less, or inflation was very high, economic growth was very less, productivity was very less. Most of the sectors, like let it be primary sector, secondary sector, or tertiary sector, all these sectors have actually gone down, and government wanted to push them up and wanted to improve, wanted to introduce some changes, thereby economy will push forward and have some changes. So therefore economic reforms basically mean the changes that were introduced in various sectors, so that we will boost the economic growth. All right. Yeah. uh, this I'm trying to show my face also, because you will not have a feeling as if you're listening to a lecture. I know, I could see, if I simply record the material, there is every possibility that you will not show very much interest. So that's the reason I wanted to see you all also. And similarly, when you want to talk something, try to record some video and post it up, so that I will be able to see you guys. Okay, some change. What is the rationale behind introducing economic reforms? In the year 1991, there was inflation, there was a lot of unemployment and poverty. Export growth was very less, imports were very less, rupee value was very less. So government wanted to do something to eliminate all the problems that government was facing. So thereby, economic reforms were introduced in the year 1991. That was the thing. All right. And if you see, the economic reforms in India are divided into generally four generation reforms. The fourth generation reforms, though government did not announce officially, um, I mean, economists and experts have declared that reforms were introduced in terms of several policies. But actually speaking, officially government has introduced three generation reforms. So first generation reforms, 1991 2000, if you could see the material, 1991 to 2000, whatever changes that were introduced in various sectors in various formats will be called as first generation reforms. All right. So if you see the features of first generation reforms, you have public sector reforms, in the sense public sector undertakings. So we wanted to make them more profitable, we wanted to make them more efficient, we wanted to actually disinvest certain public sector enterprises as they were not so productive, they were not giving revenue as we expected, etc. The second important thing is, we wanted to actually introduce private sector in the Indian economy, because government sector has failed in achieving many objectives that we thought of them to achieve. So therefore, Government of India thought very clearly that the introduction of private sector and de-reserving the sectors which were reserved, in the sense earlier certain industries were supposed to be managed and run only by public sector enterprises, but over a period of time, government has decided that we will open up the sectors to private. So we have got de-reservation, deregulation, de-controls, de-license, so on and so forth. Next, we have under external, that is international trade, a lot of products were actually restricted when they come to India. Like if somebody wants to sell goods in India, we had imposed quantitative restrictions saying that only these items, this much is allowed, so on and so forth, because of which other countries also did the same thing. We were not in a position to have products which are even essential for us, which will help Indian economy to grow properly. So external sector quantitative restrictions were abolished. And in balance of payment, in the other video I will cover up, we have got two accounts, capital account and current account. Rupee was not fully convertible at current account that time, so we made rupee fully convertible, in the sense without any restrictions. In current account, if in case they purchase goods and services, we have got financial sector reforms. So in prelims question, they might ask you under first generation reforms, which of the following form part of reforms category. Under financial sector, based on Narsimham committee recommendations, in banking, insurance, capital market, mutual funds, a lot of changes were introduced, which have actually made the economy more vibrant and more effective, more transparent, ever since the Narsimham committee recommendations were accepted. Then we have tax reforms, Chellaya committee reforms. So try to understand. Sometimes they might ask you a question, they'll give you a question, committee name, and this committee belong to which sector also. Like Chellai committee is related to tax reforms. So like we wanted to actually eliminate tax evasion. We wanted to simplify tax system. We wanted to modernize tax structure so that people will not have any confusion, in filing taxes, in estimating taxes, in paying taxes, so on and so forth. Yeah. Then we also had something called industrial policy reforms. Sorry, there's a disturbance. Industrial policy reforms. Yeah, and under that we have abolished industrial licensing. We have abolished Monopolist Restrictive Trade Practices Act. All right, these are all areas that were actually covered under first generation economic reforms. Quickly run through. Next, we have second generation reforms, started after 2000, and these reforms were basically for labor law flexibility. A lot of amendments we brought into existence related to labor laws, and we have pension reforms introduced. Employee contribution related we have introduced. So a lot of reforms were introduced when it comes to foreign direct investment in retail sector. Okay, that is second generation reforms. And in the second generation reforms, if we could see, we gave more importance to manpower rationalization. We wanted to actually uh, try and reduce the manpower that is there in public sector enterprises, and we wanted to improve savings. We wanted to introduce uh, we want to introduce some schemes so that middle class population consumption aggregate demand will increase. And we also introduce a lot of financial leverage for the states. I mean, distribution of revenue from central government to state governments have actually improved a lot under second generation. And we also gave more importance to health and education under second generation reforms. If you look at the features under public sector reforms, under second generation reforms, um we gave a lot of functional autonomy to many industries so that they will be able to increase their production capability, etc. And in financial sector, we have introduced administrative price mechanism, in the sense there are two prices. Basically, when you decide products prices and goods and product prices and services prices, we have got two principles. One principle is market mechanism, where prices are determined by demand and supply. And second thing is administrative pricing. India normally follows this. Most of the mixed economies and socialist economies follow administered pricing. Administered pricing, in the sense uh, government determines the price, like gas cylinder price. Like if you see LPG prices, petroleum prices in India are determined by government. So the prices of goods and services which are determined by government is called administered pricing. Okay, then we've opened petroleum sector to private investment, and factor market. I mean, all the factors to private sector. In other words, second generation reforms. If you focus on all the points, you will see a lot of privatization and a lot of government intervention declining, etc. Okay, and we have introduced reforms in government and public sector, fiscal reforms like taxation related. We have introduced legal sector. We have brought in a lot of amendments in Indian Penal Code, and we also amended Code of Criminal Procedure, labor laws, company laws, so on and so forth. And the second generation reforms, mostly, if you could see, we focused more on world class infrastructure, and we wanted to encourage entrepreneurship. The startup company revolution started in the third generation, wherein we try our level best to empower local institutions. And I mean, we wanted to actually have a development from the grassroots level. We start giving more importance to village development, rural development, so on and so forth. Okay, now overall, you that is just an information. Please, maybe sometimes you may have a question on highlights of all the three generation reforms. And overall, the moment you hear the word economic reforms, you please do understand three important things. Government has gone for liberalization, government has gone for privatization, government has gone for globalization. LPG: liberalization, privatization, globalization. Listen to me carefully. Liberalization is removal of restrictions by the government. Since there were a lot of restrictions, private people, foreigners, they were reluctant to come to India. They were not interested in investing in India. So therefore, we went for a lot of elimination of restrictions on private and foreign institutions. And under privatization, a government has decided to transfer public assets to private people. I repeat, when government has decided to transfer public assets to private people, private enterprises, it is called privatization. All right, and globalization part, we wanted to integrate our economy with the rest of the world. We wanted to make this world as a global village. We wanted to allow all the products and services moving across the countries without any restrictions, so on and so forth. So when you think of globalization, you basically have three important. When you think of when you think of economic reforms, there are basically three important things. That is. Liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So now in this video, I wanted to focus in detail analysis of disinvestment. And in the recent discussion in my class about the economic survey, I already had given you so much of information related to disinvestment targets that we achieved, so on and so forth. And make sure that you have that information in addition to this information. I will not be able to go by line, but I will try to give you in detail information in this. Then, if you scroll down, you have something called disinvestment. What is this? I said disinvestment is a part of privatization. Don't get confused. In privatization, there are so many routes, like we have got contracting, we have got franchising, we have got leasing, we have got disinvestment. I repeat, under privatization, we have got contracting, we give works to private people on contract basis, we give works to private people on leasing basis, we give government enterprises to private people on franchising and disinvestment. I repeat, contracting, leasing, franchising, and disinvestment. So under, if they ask you a question, what are the modes of privatization? Contracting, franchising, leasing, and disinvestment. And in this video, I want to focus more on disinvestment. Alright, yes. What is this? First line you see. Disinvestment, first one, disinvestment refers to selling of equity. That means public sector enterprises equity. In other words, shares. Public sector enterprises shares will be sold by government to private sector companies. Look at this, private sector companies, financial institutions, or general public, or employees who are working in that. Simply speaking, selling of shares of public sector enterprises to the private sector companies, or to the financial institutions, or to the general public, or to the employees who are working over there will be called as disinvestment. You know, one very important thing in Indian economy, government has a separate ministry, disinvestment ministry, and government every year sets a target of selling this equity. In other words, you try to understand now, we might have two important disinvestment mechanism: minor, major, or 100%. When I say minor, government will try to sell less than 50% of stake to private people. So the control is still in the hands of government. When I say major, government will try to sell more than 51% to private people, so the management control is gone to private people. Yes, when I say 100% sale, that 100% of the investment of public sector enterprise will be sold to whom? Private people. Understood? Minor, major, and 100% sale. Am I clear? Minor means less amount of investment will be sold to private. Major means more amount of, that is more than 51% will be sold to private people. 100% means 100% of the investment of public sector enterprises will be sold to private people. Okay, so the basic difference between, so disinvestment is a part of privatization. Try to understand. Disinvestment is about selling equity. Privatization is about transferring public assets in different ways to public. Private, right? See here, I have given some differences here. You can see, you can actually go through it. Privatization refers to larger role of private capital. It is wider term than investment, because in privatization, basically here I have given, you see, there is a disinvestment, there is a denationalization, that is complete sell of public sector enterprise, there is a transfer of management and control to private sector, there is a dereservation in the sense, earlier there were some industries which are supposed to be continued run only by public sector enterprise, and that hitherto principle of allowing only government to do is now given off to private people. That is dereservation. Alright, and look at the general objectives. If you could see, when I go for disinvestment, what happens actually, try to understand this: transfer resources from non-strategic sector to strategic sector. What we do, we mobilize resources where we are not able to utilize such resources. We sell off the investment, get money. This money can be used for welfare, education, health, and other priority sectors, and we can actually reduce fiscal deficit, because there's a lot of deficit, government spending a lot of money in running these public sector enterprises. There's a heavy burden on the exchequer. This burden government wanted to reduce. Government wants to improve efficiency. Government want to enhance accountability. Government wanted to reduce political interference. Because of political interference only, many public sector enterprises were not in a position to compete with private. We wanted to actually make them more competitive. And we wanted to make them globally very important and competitive companies. And we wanted to bring down, I mean, see, not there are two kinds of industries: strategic, non-strategic. There's no point in keeping government investment and government toggling toiling so much to do something. So government wanted to reduce its role in non-strategic sectors. Government want to restructure. There are some public sector enterprises which requires a lot of funds, a lot of technology, a lot of expertise. Because of lack of these things, public sector enterprises are not actually in a position to perform. So we wanted to make them more effective. We want to close down some, because they are not, I mean, there are some public sector enterprises which have become sick, which means they have been running in heavy losses, and we tried our level best. We tried to rehabilitate them, we tried to restructure them, we did so many things to actually revamp such industries, but we could not. We failed miserably. So therefore we wanted to actually close down such things, and we wanted to protect the interest of workers. Actually, what happens is, over a period of time, if industry is shut, workers will go. If it is open up to private sector, private people will bring in expertise, technology, and their jobs will be saved. It's actually either way around. Some people are thinking disinvestment will cost jobs, but it is not 100% true. Government will be able to sustain such industries. If industry itself is not there, where will you get an employment? So if you want to sustain industry, retain industry, if you want to have the industry, the best option for you is to have a partner, and that partner should have efficiency, productivity, so on and so forth. Alright, then if you scroll down, you have something called how actually does happen. 1992, government has constituted a committee headed by Rangarajan, headed by Rangarajan. If you see, recommend policy on disinvestment. That was the first attempt. Then committee recommended up to 49% in public sector enterprises have to be disinvested. So it's like this in India. Disinvestment modes we have like 26%. Sometimes we will sell, 49% we will sell, 51% we will sell, 74% we will sell, 100% we will sell. So there are different rates at which government has decided. So this committee, the one very important prelims question, please do understand, Narasim Rangarajan committee has recommended that public sector units can be disinvested up to 49% till 74% depending on the industries. Alright, so there was a 5-member committee. Commission was appointed in 1996. These two committees, please. One is Rangarajan committee. Second thing is 1996 G.V. Ramakrishnan committee. He has designed a comprehensive disinvestment program and policy in the long run, the procedure, methodology, etc., etc. All right. Then fourth point, if you could see, commission was mandate to advise. I mean, commission. I mean, I mean, the committee recommended that there should be a disinvestment commission, and that commission has to advise government in the process of disinvestment. Means which industry, which company has to be disinvested, at what rate this equity has to be sold, where, how, when, and if in case there's a money mobilized, this money, where should it go, how should it go, all these things, right? Then in the year May 2004, if you could see, National Common Minimum Program, which outlined the policy of government with respect to following sector. That is, profit-making units will not be privatized. In 2004, I mean, until 2004, we did not differentiate between profit-making, loss-making units, whether to disinvest only loss making or profit making. We didn't have a category, but in 2004 this national common minimum program has actually stressed or emphasized more on these important points. Number one, profit making should not be privatized, and in case of privatization of profitable public sector, at least 51% must be in the hands of government only, and navratnas should be retained by the public sector. Navratnas or mini ratnas or maharatnas, Indian public sector enterprises are divided into Navratnas, Mini Ratnas, and Maharatnas. In the upcoming pages, I will show you the types and methods in briefly, right? So Navratnas are basically decided based on net profit, based on turnover, and as far as my knowledge is concerned, if a company has been consistently earning 500 crores of profit, we will treat it as Navratnas. Okay, so it's like this, and the commission has recommended loss-making companies may be sold off, may be closed off, etc., etc. Privatization should be considered on a transparent and consultative manner. We should not go for privatization unless and until we consult laborers, employees, trade unions, government, stakeholders, etc. We take the opinion, so on and so forth. And we also have started something called Board for Reconstruction of Public Sector Enterprises. Reconstruction word is used with respect to companies which have been sick, and if you want to revamp them, if you want to renovate them, if you want to rehabilitate them, you will have to hand over this, and that will take over, appoint experts, and restructure the companies which have been running in losses. All right, the next one, you have National Investment Fund. You see, whatever money that is mobilized through disinvestment, all right, I said disinvestment is a process where we sell equity to public. So when we sell equity, that is when we sell share of a public company to private, obviously what happens? We will get money. This money will be channelized into a fund called National Investment Fund. It was constituted in the year 2005, and this fund will be used for welfare or social activities. Alright, in November 2005, government decided in principle profitable central public sector enterprises on domestic stock exchanges and to selectively sell small portions of equity. In the sense, if in case public sector enterprises have been running in profit, we didn't want to go for a major sale of investment, but we wanted to go for minor sale. That is one thing. And we also have set a target of rupees 40,000 crores in that year, and the targets now have been reduced to 30,000 crores. That means government has been very serious about selling of the public sector enterprises investment. The reason is very simple. we were not in a position to run them effectively. Private competition is very cutthroat, foreign competition is very cutthroat. We could not achieve the objectives for which we started off these public sector enterprises. We wanted to make them more productive, we wanted to make them more competitive, we wanted to introduce technology, we wanted to restructure the management, we wanted to reduce the burden of government, we wanted to be more transparent, we wanted to go in for more products and services which are more competitive, qualitative, so on and so forth. If you go on thinking like this, you can actually think in that way. Then latest disinvestment, if you could see, government has trebled three times the 65,000 crores recently in the economic survey. If you could see, the target of disinvestment means government has decided to raise this much of money by selling of government public sector enterprises shares, 2,10,000 crores. Alright, that is pretty much very high. What are the methods? Very important, very important. Put a star mark here and make sure that you remember this carefully, right? What are the, that means I have decided to sell public sector enterprises equity to private. I said maybe the shares of the government companies may be bought by private people or public or financial institutions or another public sector enterprise also. It's like, you see, you imagine now slowly here, next 2 minutes, please make sure that you are very clear and don't misunderstand this, because if you misunderstand this, you will blame me afterwards. Okay, don't blame me or yourself. I have decided to sell public sector investment to whom? Public or private or financial institution. Sometimes you can even sell it to other public sector enterprise also. So there are different methods, right? I have given very clearly, the material is very brief, very succinct, and make sure that you read it and don't waste time, please. There is a first of all prelims question, how many methods? There are 7 methods of what disinvestment. I hope you guys are very clear with what is disinvestment and what is privatization. What is disinvestment? What is disinvestment? Selling of public equity to private. What is privatization? Transferring of public assets to private people. How do you transfer public assets to private people? There are 4 ways. Number 1, franchising. Number 2, contracting. Number 3, leasing. Number 4, disinvestment. Out of all the 4 methods through which we implement privatization, which is more rampant? Disinvestment. If they ask you a question out of franchising, contracting, leasing, disinvestment, there are 4 modes of privatization. Out of these 4 modes of privatization, which mode of privatization is more mostly used in India? That is disinvestment. Is that point clear? Yes, guys? Yes. Then the next one, you see, what are the methods? First method, if you could say, public offer. Then how government is selling public sector enterprises equity to private people? First one, public offer. Public offer in the sense either public offering is the sale of equity shares or other financial instruments, means bonds, debentures, shares, to the public. That means government has decided to raise capital from public, directly offering shares to public, like how public companies will raise money. That's it. That is public offer. Yes. Second one, sale of equity. Sale of equity in the public offer may fresh shares are sold. Sale of equity, look here, an equity sale refers to the sale of common share. So company is already there, company has the shares, and the company shares are going to be sold. So first point is raising money fresh. Second point is selling of existing shares. And maybe, so that means here in the second, sale of equity concept is basically where we sell the shares which are already existing and we don't transfer the ownership. We don't transfer the ownership. We sell the shares which are already with us. Alright. Offer for sale, you see, is a mechanism where promoters, they offer for sale, the keywords you understand, because match the following questions they might ask you. Offer for sale in the sense, existing company promoters will sell their shares directly to the public. Transparent manner in the sense, they will disclose everything, how they are selling. Like if I'm a promoter of a company, when I started company, I was the promoter, I had majority of the shares, I wanted to sell and invite private people. So offer for sale is basically existing promoters of a listed company will be selling their shares to public. Alright, cross-holding. See, understand slowly, is a situation in which publicly traded corporation, that means a company whose shares are listed in the stock exchange, will sell to another so listed public company shares will be bought by another listed public company. Am I clear? Yes. Next, golden share. In a sense, golden share, it's like public sector enterprise doesn't sell everything. It retains majority. Third point, you see, it holds special voting rights, giving its holder ability to block another shareholder from taking more than ratio of ordinary. In a sense, it's something where maximum amount of power you'll try to keep. You don't sell off the shares in such a way where you will give off management, etc. You will significant shareholding, you will keep it. Significant shareholding. Yes, I mean company management structure will not change. You sell shares in such a way, but after selling the shares in the management, was there any change in management structure? No significant change. That is golden share. Next, warehousing. See, try to understand this. Government owned financial institutions. So, under warehousing, what happens is one public sector company shares are held in the hands of another public financial institution. Cross holding is one public sector company shares are bought by another public sector company. Bought. Here you see carefully, warehousing. One public sector company shares are kept in the hands of another public financial institution. Alright, that is warehousing. Strategic sale. Strategic sale is basically where we sell off more than 51%. It's very danger, and majority recently 3-4 companies, I'll show you that list also. Even in economic survey I gave a list. 5 companies have already been decided by central government to go for strategic sale. 100%. We will simply in a typical strategic. Why is it called? First of all, management control will be given. Transfer strategic sale is something where management ownership will be given, and we will not give it to somebody who's not actually competent. Because of that fellow, our industry is going to be more competent. I mean, the partner, whoever is taking the shares of public sector enterprise, is going to make this company more effective, more efficient. Yes. Quickly move on to the next one. Strategic sale, where was it done? I have given in the economic survey as well. Once again, just refer this. There are 5 very important question for prelims here. 5 central public sector enterprises, HPCL, REC, abbreviations and all. Just Google and take those names, please. Overall target is 52,828 crores. Very important for the examination point of view. Yes. And example, you see here, if you look at this chart which is given by government recently, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, it's strategic sale, and THDC India Limited, NTPC to be placed up by CPSCs. So this investment in CPSCs placed by this another public sector enterprise. In the sense, uh, I mean this BPCL, THDCIL, NEPCO will be taken up by another public sector enterprise. So don't you think it is cross-holding? Yes. That is one thing. And disinvestment earnings, if you could see, since 1991 till date, that is 2000 financial year 1920 tak, if you could see, this is what we earned. There was a dip, but this is the overall structure. That is 1 lakh plus crores, 1,56 crores we could raise through disinvestment, right? And now let us look at some very important points here. Yeah, important concepts. Important concepts. If you are able to see that, what is Navratna? See, Navratna is a public sector enterprise. Initially, in the year 1997, we identified 9 public sector enterprises as Navratnas. We generally compare the revenue, turnover, net profit, okay, etc. And we would like to give them some autonomy, some independence, some amount of policy leverage, funding, credit, some amount of guideline, support, etc., will be given to them because they are extremely performing very well. How many Navratna companies? Initially, there were, so this is what the confusion. In the beginning, there were 9 companies which were identified as Navratnas. That's why it is called Nav. But now there are actually 16 in the country. All the 16 list is also given. Sometimes you may have prelims question, which of the following is not Navratna. Alright, total 16 other, all the 16 list is given here. Please go through this. Okay, all the 16 list is given. Material is given to you. Please download it and read it. The next one, how many mini Navratnas are there? You see now, mini Ratna companies, India has increased lot numbers and system. The first category, there are two categories of mini Ratnas, category 1 60 companies, category 2 18 companies. Prelims question again, mini Ratnas, again based on turnover, based on net profit, etc. It is decided. So there are two categories of mini Ratnas, 60 companies in the first category and 18 companies in the second category. How many categories of public sector enterprises are there? So overall, three categories: Navratna, Mini Ratna, Maharatna. And this categorization very important for prelims. This categorization is based on factors: turnover, net worth, net profit. I repeat, whether it is Navratna or Mini Ratna or Maharatna is dependent on turnover, net worth, net profit, and their presence in the stock exchange also, please. And total central public sector enterprises as on 23rd October 2019, there are 10 Maharatnas, 14 Navratnas as per 2019. That is, some of them have already been closed or disinvested. So this is the latest data. 10 Maharatnas, 14 Navratnas, 74 Mini Ratnas. Please do copy this carefully. And there are nearly 300 central public sector enterprises in total across the country. Who started Disinvestment? I gave you. There were two. Rangarajan committee was one thing, and in 1996 there was a very important committee which has actually suggested modalities for disinvestment, stuff like that. Is G.V. Ramakrishna. Go through this material. Please make sure that you study the material and listen to this video again. If you have any doubt, make sure that you are always free to post. Otherwise, you can call me. No issues. Otherwise, you just go through the material and rehear the video. That is one reason why we record videos. Alright, so don't procrastinate, don't delay. In other words, finish whatever is given to you. Devi sir is giving something, I'm also giving something. All the BRICS IAS study circle students, make sure that you read, study and continue. Don't waste time. Have a nice day.